Okay, we are now live.
Great, thank you, Amy. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the February 24th, 2021 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Dennis Wenzel and I am the chair of this group. Our meetings are being held virtually for the time being, but we have many ways for folks interested to participate in this gathering. Public comment can be submitted via email or voicemail. You can listen in real time on a dial-in connection. You can also participate live in this meeting with the City of Asheville's engagement portal. All of this information and the corresponding links can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page at the City of Asheville's website. The mission of the Multimodal Transportation Commission is to assist the city in furthering, advancing, and promoting a comprehensive and integrative transportation system that incorporates multimodal concepts, including but not limited to transit, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, greenways, complete streets, and highways. Members, yes, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times so we can avoid some of that feedback that we might get and some other background noises. I'd like to now introduce our commission members. Members, when I call your name, please introduce yourself and let us know what interest you represent. Joe.
Hi, Joe Archibald. I am the Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison to the Multimodal Transit Commission.
Welcome, Joe. Michael Stratton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Stratton. I'm currently at large.
Hi, Michael. Patricia Katz.
Hi, I'm Patricia Katz. Everyone calls me Pat, and I guess I'm at large as well.
Grand. Welcome, Kat. Lydia Brewer.
Hi, I'm Lydia Brewer, and I am on the Greenway Committee.
Great. Michael Waddell. Did Michael make it in? I don't think Michael made it in.
I think he sent an email saying he wasn't going to make it today.
Okay. John Bassoni.
Hi, I'm John Bassoni, and I represent the Transit Committee.
Great. Hey, John. Maggie Ullman.
Hey, gang. Maggie Ullman. I am not sure if I represent a committee, so I need to look into that. But
well, we'll get that sorted out soon enough.
The last month I can skate away with, I'm new, so I'm going to say it.
Anna Sexton.
Hi, I'm Anna Sexton, and I represent the Neighborhood Advisory Committee.
Excellent. Welcome, Anna. Randy Warren.
I'm Randy Warren, and I'm on the Bike Ped Task Force.
Great. And Kim Rooney? Kim, did you make it yet?
Yes, indeed. I'm here. Thank you for all of your time and energy and being here today.
Great. Welcome, Kim. Okay, everyone. So a real quick housekeeping item. Although that we are not bound by any, structure for meetings necessarily, I wanted to gauge the Commission's interest in test driving a procedure that might help us preserve some of our meeting time for more of that kind of discussion and kind of the nitty-gritty that we're all here to do. So with that in mind, if you could scroll to the end of the Commission, end of the agenda, you'll see a Commission procedure section, and it's just really it's very standard stuff. What I would do is I'd introduce the agenda item. We would hear from staff or other experts. If there's a petitioner, we'd hear from those folks as well. Then we'd have some public content that's consistent with that item. And then we would make a motion as a group. Someone would make a motion on the commission. We'd have a second, and that's where we would have our debate and we would have our discussion. So we get this agenda a couple of days in advance. So within these few days, we've probably all gone through a lot of the supporting documentation. We've been out and visited these sites. So we do have, I think we're coming with a lot of these ideas, and I just think it's a good time for us to kind of meld it all together. We make a motion of substitution if necessary. We call a vote, and we move on to the next order of business. That sound like a plan we can test out? Perfect. All right, thumbs up around. Excellent. We'll give it a shot.
I have a quick question just so I can understand the procedure, Dennis. This is Kim. Yes. So are you suggesting that would work sort of like a consent agenda where everyone reviews the parts, but then there's only one motion and vote for all items?
No, it's not a consent agenda. I'm just going through and kind of just creating a format to go through each item. So we're still going to break down each item individually.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's give it a test. The first item is today's agenda, the February 24th, 2021 agenda for our meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I have a motion. This is Maggie.
Maggie, motion and a second.
Randy will second.
Randy, second. Excellent. Any comments? All right, quick roll call. Maggie?
Aye.
John? Lydia
Aye.
Bruder? Oh, thanks, John.
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Patricia?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Beautiful. Motion carries. The next item is our minutes from our last meeting, January 27th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve?
Maggie makes a motion.
Maggie moves and a second.
I'll second.
John with a second. All right, any comments, corrections, clarifications on our minutes? Right on. We'll go through a roll call. Maggie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lydia?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Katz?
Sorry, it's Pat Katz. And
Pat.
aye.
Pat Katz. Aye. All right, and Randy?
Aye.
Perfect, and I am aye as well. Moving on. All right, the next item is public comment. I believe we do have a speaker today. Carmen, are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you.
We did receive some of your comments, but I know you're here to talk. We're really glad that you're here, and we're interested in what you have to say. If you could just, for the record, state your name and your address, and tell us why you're here.
My home address?
Any address.
Any address.
We don't need to ask for that,
Oh,
Dennis.
no address needed. Just your name.
Okay. All right. My name is Carmen Ibarra.
Hey, Carmen. And why are you with us today?
I am here on behalf of Just Economics and our Better Buses campaign. And I'm here to talk about a proposal that we're hoping for the commission's endorsement on. And I've prepared something because my memory is not great. I want to make sure I hit the points that I want to make. So if I can read that all to you, that would be really helpful. So I'm really grateful to be speaking to you all today about this plan. And like I said, I am hoping for the commission's endorsement for the proposal. So during this time, the city has been working on what it means to reimagine public safety. And Better Buses Together is proposing that safety on transit is also reimagined. We're asking the city to invest in the development of a new position that would take the place of the conventional policing model of security guards currently in place at the transit center. While the position would include the responsibilities of current security guards on the platform, it would entail providing more support and more communication with the individuals who ride the buses. This position would be staffed by professionals skilled in conflict resolution, de-escalation, intervention, and it would also have training built in that would recognize mental health issues, and it would help to engage and create connections with transit riders. in advance of the meeting, I've sent you all an email that I hope you've received, and that includes the proposal. And there you'll find more information, a cost analysis, and some feedback from the writers. You'll also be able to find links about other cities that are implementing similar positions in their transit operations. And in the email, you will also find a link to an endorsement form that can be used when the commission is ready to support this proposal. It's a crucial time to improve and reimagine the safety of our community. This proposed position would be a model of a new and innovative way to do that. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I'm happy to answer any questions now, or in my email, I've provided my contact info, so you're welcome to reach out that way too.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Carmen. I really appreciate the info, and I went through the document you sent, and I think it's very interesting. Are there any questions for our speaker?
I don't have a question, but as much as more of a comment on this. I had attended a few meetings where this had come up at the Better Buses initiative, and I thought this was a fantastic idea. And I don't know if anybody's seen the news as of today, but there's been yet another individual who's unfortunately lost his life at the hands of police. And if we look at the details of this, it looks like it was due to poor training on the police's part. It's not Asheville, but you know, I think anytime that we can replace a police officer for a call like this, that's money well spent. I would totally endorse this.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone else?
I have a question, and
Sure.
I'm not sure, Carmen, if it's for you or for Jessica's staff. But before the question, I love Just Economics work, and I'm just so grateful to see the organizing that you're doing, and for y'all to be so proactive of like thinking of solutions and bringing them here. It's such a nice way. A lot of times as community organizers, we have to be reactive, but it just feels really nice to see this proactive approach, especially ahead of budget season, which is very well timed. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess, and this might be more for Jessica, but also Carmen, you might know, like, what are we doing now? Is it an actual APD officer? My guess is
No.
it security contract.
Yeah, there's a contract with a security guard company, and then they send out their employees.
Okay. And do you know, or does anyone know, is that because of our relationship, I know that the city of Asheville manages a management company to do a lot of the transit stuff. Do we actually sign the contract with this security company, or is that through the management company that manages the transit system for us?
So I'll ask Jessica to answer that. I was under the impression it was one thing, but I recently found other information. But well, I'll let her answer, and then I might have some feedback if she's available.
Sure.
Sweet,
Yeah.
thanks.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So currently the way that it's done, and it may have been different in the past under the previous contractor, but so we contract with RATP Dev to run the system, and then they contract out to do the security. And up until maybe, I can't remember because time is like a construct now, but up until about maybe 6 or 8 months ago, it was a combination of a private security company, mostly during the day. And then in the evenings, we would have an APD off-duty officer be the security. And we changed that, like I said, in the last maybe 6 to 8 months, where we were able to take the same amount of funding that we had available for security, and we were able to remove APD's role and add additional security / help in the evenings at the center. So instead of having APD be there because they were not always there consistently. Sometimes they would get called to other things. And so having more of a presence was a priority. And so we switched to having just the private security. They're unarmed security, but I do want us to take a look at the proposal that Better Buses has provided. I checked with the general contractor today, and he said that we currently have about 147 hours a week of security coverage, and it's basically 16 hours a day, except for Sundays is a little bit less. And there's one security officer that covers like the morning and early afternoon, and then we have 2 security officers in the late afternoon through the evening hours. So that's what we currently have. And the contract amount for that is about $137,000.
Okay, great. Looks like Pat, do you have a comment or a question? No. Okay.
So you'll find a cost analysis that we did. And so this 137 is different than in the cost analysis and would, obviously make the amount less. That would be the difference. And you'll see that.
So we're asking basically that this proposal is asking to take this aspect away from the security company, away from the contract, and to make it a city employee. Or is it, and I'm wondering, is it, so most cities that have sizable transit organizations have transit police, which is a division of the regular police, and they're specially trained to handle those types of things there. Theoretically, although sometimes it's considered a kind of punishment to have to work transit police duty, but so explain that to me. If it's a city employee, or is it what?
So Better Buses isn't really in a place to make that sort of call for the city. They are up for a renewal of their contract. RATP Dev, who is the management of the transit. And we are hoping that if this proposal moves forward, what that could look like was the city and the management company determining how that would happen. So either the city could take back the security portion, or the management company could say, yeah, we'll do that. We just need the parameters.
Okay. Michael, did you have a comment?
Yeah. So it seems like this is a hybrid of 2 positions, whether there be a security guard and a social working position, is my understanding. It just so happens that the bus station is directly across the street from Buncombe County Health and Human Services. Mm-hmm. Is this an opportunity where we could combine resources with, and I don't know who the best answer to this, maybe it's Kim or Jessica, but is this an opportunity where we could combine resources and work in tandem with the county? And anytime that social work aspect comes up, we can literally walk them across the street and say, hey, here's this whole plethora of resources that are available to you. So we can really focus on the fix as opposed to the very acute nature of security needs.
Yeah, Michael, I think that's a really good point. I mean, the sense after going through the documents, I think it's really strong. So maybe what we could do is we could ask Jessica for her team to take this and do some background and bring it back to us as an agenda item, so we can kind of understand some of these questions. I don't want to put anyone in the spot and have to, answer some of these more detailed questions. But Jessica, maybe we can do that and then add this to a future agenda item, and just make sure that we have both Carmen's document and then her contact info, so we can notify her once this comes back to our agenda, comes back to our meeting as an agenda item.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I'll get in touch with you, and because I really like Michael's idea. Well, I like the whole idea as an ideal to work towards, and I really like Michael's idea of trying to talk with the county, especially since they're literally right across the street. And so I'll get in touch with you, because I think I would need support for getting some more information from your organization.
Yeah, I'm here for you, Jessica. Just let me know what I can do.
Excellent,
Cool.
Carmen.
Thank you.
Of course. Very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all so
Great stuff.
much. Thank you for this time. I appreciate all of the work that you all do. Have a good day.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
Your
Carmen.
time. Take care.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see. Our first order of business is the presentation on the Charlotte Street update. The good folks from Traffic Planning and Design, Inc. are here to present.
Thanks for having us. I'm going to go ahead and share slides. And I'm going to have you confirm that you can see them here. Is my screen showing up?
Yes.
All righty. And Christy's going to start us off.
Yep, I'll get started. We know a good many of you just from being around town. I'm a former MMTC member. I was on Joe's spot representing P&Z, so been there, know what you're doing. But Christy and I both work in Asheville, and our office is actually on Charlotte Street. We work for Traffic Planning and Design, and we were the lead firm on the Charlotte Street Road Diet project, along with local firms Equinox and McGill, and at that time I was with my own company. And you have our contact information there. We're going to give a very quick project overview, just not knowing how many of you have dug into the details of what we did. I hope you've all been on the corridor and have experienced it. So we have a really short PowerPoint presentation today, and if there are questions, we have an expanded one that we can have queued up to give more information about the actual project, because bulk of our time we're going to focus on the before and after study. So there's Charlotte Street, the before view. Go ahead, Christy. And just in terms of the goal of the project, we thought it was good to start here. One thing about this project is when council voted on our contract and when the bond referendum went through, Charlotte Street was important for the bond. And when our contract went through, they made a really clear, the mayor made a very clear statement that Asheville's vision is multimodal, and that all the road projects that the city does in the future really have to think about multimodal connectivity. And this Charlotte Street was kind of the first test case of a big roadway project that was coming through after the AIM plan had been adopted. And I'm going to hand it over to Christy to talk through some of the details about the construction and the timing and the budget before we get into the before and after details.
Thanks, Christy. And yeah, we wanted to step back. We were asked to come and show you the before and after results. But like Christy said, we just wanted to step back and give kind of an overview of a few things of the project, the details, and we could, like she said, dive into more detail at another time if needed on the process. However, we just wanted to start by acknowledging that this project was budget constrained. There was about $1 million for construction, and we had to get it from, through the public engagement process to bid docs within 6 months. And then it went to bid and was completed in the following year. And the constraints we had, and those of you who are familiar with this corridor know that there were a lot of needs, right? So if you look at this photo, you can see the utility poles and the sidewalk. You can see there's parking backing up into the pedestrian zones. The road is narrow. There's drainage issues and a lot of vision for this corridor, widening sidewalks, things like that. And we were given the directive, stay within curb to curb width. It's really a repaving project. We're getting something done with repaving. And if we have some extra money, we're going to upgrade sidewalks as best we can. We were not able to purchase right away or, get substantial easements beyond what is public right away now. So just kind of having that in mind as we start looking here at some of the details. And the project limits were from the I-240 off-ramp, the I-240 West off-ramp to Edwin Place. So that just gives you some context. And we had to deal with the transition on the south end of the corridor by 240 to not affect the DOT-owned and maintained signal at the ramps. And just to give you a brief traffic context, I know that you all have other locations you're considering road diets, so I thought this might be helpful. We were dealing with the section on the left here was the widest portion of the corridor, but on the right, you can see that curb face to curb face was in some places less than 40 feet. So we really spent a lot of time looking at, can we actually fit 5-foot bike lanes and 3 lanes of traffic when we're under 40 feet? So there's a few of these lanes that are probably 9.5 feet wide. So it's really tight there. And so really doing the road diet with the 2 bike lanes at minimum width was as much as would fit there. And again, the preview is that it was 4 lanes of traffic, no turning lanes, no bike facilities, poor pedestrian facilities before. And after we went to providing a 2-way left turn lane, which allows for better, traffic can get into the turn lane to make left turns so that hopefully to reduce rear end crashes and stopping and starting along the corridor. And then we got the bike lanes in as well. And we also were tasked with looking at pedestrian improvements and crossing improvements along the corridor. One thing that was really great with this project is we got Matt Lee, who's a resident here, offered to join us on a site visit with the project manager. And we walked the corridor and got to experience real time the challenges maneuvering a wheelchair along this corridor, and really helped us prioritize where we would invest any additional leftover budget we had on sidewalk improvements. And so we didn't have enough to do both sides of the road. So what we ended up doing is saying, let's get this completely passable on one side of the road so someone can make it through in a wheelchair. So that's where this concept came of improving driveways and sidewalk sections on the west side of the roadway. And then you'll see here, some of you may have driven this corridor and wondered why we have these flat islands as pedestrian refuge islands. And one of the conflicts we had with the public during this process was people were worried about emergency vehicle access. And they were also worried about what happens if this is a complete failure, like they were all afraid of. And so what we did is come up with a concession to take these areas and put them as a flush median. So it's reversible if there was a need, and 2, so it can be moved through by emergency vehicles. So that was just a concession to kind of help people get over their fear. And it also helped with turning movements to and from side streets, which would be hard with narrow lanes and a median refuge. We did some bicycling improvements, bike detection, these green bike boxes, and we also did some signal improvements for pedestrians and bikes that when the PED push buttons were called, it doesn't keep a flashing arrow or allow the green left turns to go at the same time, so to protect them. So there were a number of kind of technology elements we were able to incorporate. And to give you the traffic context, north of Chestnut Street, the ADT previous was ranging, depending on what segment you were on, but generally about 12,000 vehicles per day. But south of Chestnut, what you're seeing here, was closer to 20,000 per day. And that speaks to kind of as traffic funnels in to this corridor to get to the interchange and can back up at the I-240 interchange. That was kind of one of the constraints we were dealing with, is how to manage that to not.
Christy,
yeah, go ahead.
Can you move that high thing so people can see the numbers?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, that was one of the challenges here, is that we had to transition in this area back to 2 lanes southbound so that the queuing here would not back up through the Chestnut Street signal. And since we could not, I think had we had a budget and a project limit that involved the interchange ramps, more could have been done. But, with that being DOT ownership, that was not feasible with the scope of this project. So what we did is the city, thanks to their forethought, agreed to develop a scope of work to do before and after traffic results and studies so that we could see truly, people were worried about travel times really increasing with these types of projects. And some people were worried about cut-through traffic on side streets. And so, that forethought allowed us to get data collected in November of 2019 prior to implementation. And then we have 3 phases of data collection. There was the pre-implementation in November of 2019. We just did a round of data collection this October, November, tried to capture leaf season as best we could. And then we also have another phase of post-implementation data collection. The issue now with COVID is that we had originally scheduled that 9 to 12 months post-implementation, but there's got to be some discussion about, do we want to wait till traffic volumes have come back up so that we really get a good picture of before and after data. So before I get into all the results, I just have to put the big caveat out there is that we all know that traffic patterns are not the same right now due to COVID and travel patterns. So, unfortunately, we gained insights with the data we collected, but it's not as conclusive as we would have hoped. And so I think that for us to really land on some solid data, it's probably going to be about a year down the road. So what we did as far as data collection, you can see these green spots here. These are all hose counts. So they're the tubes you see across roads that traffic engineers put out. And what they allow us to collect is the type of vehicle. So we put down a really thin tube that would pick up bicycle volumes. It'll tell you if there's trucks, passenger cars, bikes. And it also collects travel speed data. And then what we did is this 24-hour data. So we get peak hour counts and 24-hour data for those locations. So we had 3 locations along Charlotte Street, and then 2 of the side streets that people were concerned about cut through traffic. And that would be Madison Avenue and Washington Road. Then we also use a technology that's pretty cool because it allows you to get travel time. So it picks up Bluetooth devices. So down at Clayton Street, we put what they call Blue Mac device, and it picks up any Bluetooth device in a car, on a phone, and it matches the IP address at different points along the corridor. So you can see, that device might have passed at Clayton Street at a certain timestamp, and then Edwin at another, so that we can see how long it's taking folks to get through the corridor. We put an additional Blue Mac device right around Baird Street so that we could break out the delay associated with Chestnut Street. So as you come off the interchange, between Clayton and Baird, if that time went up, you'd know that was likely due to the signal at Chestnut Street. So getting into the results, we have a summary at the end. This is very, heavy traffic stuff, so hopefully we don't bore you all. But first of all, the speeds. This chart on the right shows you that down at Clayton, the speeds are generally the same before and after. At Baird, they went down, and that's where we would hope they would go down, is kind of like in the heart of the road diet application. At Edwin Place, they actually went up a bit. It's about 4 miles per hour. And that is where the project ends, and the lane configurations weren't any really different before and after. And also, we had some weird outliers. On the week that we did the traffic data off peak, there were some really crazy high-end speeds. Somebody must have just been messing around in the corridor. So I think that might just be an outlier data set that we'll have to look at the next round of data to clarify. And then just to touch briefly on the impacts of COVID. So right now, we're seeing anywhere from 16 to 25% decrease in traffic volumes from November of 2019 to November of 2020. At Edwin Place, it's only down 16%, but up at Clayton, where all the commuter traffic patterns would be seen, it was down by 25. Interestingly, bicycle travel really increased. You can see here at Clayton, it went up by 75%. And that's kind of what used to be, this is on the south end of the corridor near the interchange. That used to be kind of the most hostile location along the corridor for bikes. So to see bike traffic go up there does speak to the benefits of this road diet project. And then it shows a slight decrease at Baird and Edwin, but I just want to point out that that's like 4 to 6 vehicles. And that could be a daily fluctuation any given time, depending on weather or whether people are out. So these are statistically probably not as significant. Just touching base on those traffic volumes again, one thing I wanted to note when we're looking at travel time data is that nationally, and this is true here too, AM traffic volumes are down a lot more than PM traffic volumes. So here, the AM peak hour traffic volumes are down by 30 to 35% along the corridor, but you'll see that the PM peak hours are rebounding. So at Edwin Place, we're only down 5% over pre-COVID, which could be a daily fluctuation percentage. So we're almost back to pre-COVID. At the top end of the corridor, down at Clayton, we're still down almost 20%. So we don't have a true feel for travel times post-COVID, but knowing this, I think it points to looking at the PM peak hour travel time data to see what that shows us, because the AM peak hour travel times are not really going to be as telling. And then this is a really complex chart, but I'm going to point you to two numbers here. So this is the AM peak hour travel time from the BlueMac, the Bluetooth data we collected. And I'm going to point you to this negative 1.5 and negative 3.2. And so that's saying if you're going northbound, the difference between before and after going all the way from Clayton to Edwin was down 1.5 seconds. So with the road diet in the AM, it takes less time to get from beginning to end. And southbound, the same. And then in the PM, also going northbound, it's down 5.8 seconds, and southbound is down 7 seconds. And I want to point out one little detail here. If you look at this mid section, Baird to Edwin, that's the section that includes one signal. And for those of you familiar with the corridor, you know it's Hillside. And the intersection at Hillside is complex in that, you know, that's not where we thought we would see an increase in travel time because there's not a lot of traffic volume coming off of Hillside. But I think that, you know, based on looking at the data, the travel time in that section is probably up than pre-COVID because of the PED recall that the city has in place. So for those, you know, this is a little technical, I'll try to keep it simple, but, you know, if you're coming up Hillside and waiting at the light to get onto Charlotte Street during the peak hour, there's only so many times during the hour that that signal gets called because there's not always cars waiting there. That's pre-COVID. But during COVID, that side street got called every signal cycle because it was on PED recall. So I'm thinking, and we'll see this with the next round of data, that this increase there is just due to the PED recall. So that's another factor we'll be looking at.
And Christy, if I can clarify one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what you're saying on that last chart, it actually takes 5.8 seconds longer to make it through the corridor.
No, it's down.
Okay.
So you see before it was 95.6 and after is 89.8. And so
Christy,
where we were really, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Christy, this is Jessica. When you say PED recall, does that mean when someone pushes, it used to be that someone would have to push the button, but now it goes off automatically? Or
our understanding is that the side street was getting called regardless to allow PEDs to cross without having to push the button.
Okay.
And we need to go back and make sure that operation is the case. But if that's happening and that side street's getting called every phase, that would increase the amount of delay on the main through movement.
Okay.
And Maggie, does that answer your question?
Yes.
I guess, and so there's like an implication that I'm hearing that I'm not connecting the dots due to how technical what you're saying is. And I think the implication is that there's more pedestrians in COVID at that intersection, which is contributing to the delay there.
Not necessarily, because we didn't do pedestrian counts because that is a pretty expensive endeavor. We have the data, the video data, if the city ever wants to compare them so they can count pedestrians, but it's a pretty time intensive thing. What it really means is the signals are set to assume there's a pedestrian there, even if there's not. And that was just a citywide policy change that happened during that time, which is, hey, you don't have to use the push buttons. We're going to set the signals to think you're there.
Okay, I'm with you now.
So the implication is, I think that delay is less than, like it's saying it takes more 8 seconds. That's not a lot of time, but it probably actually pre and post implementation is not an increase. It's really just because of the signal timing that's set right now because of COVID.
Thanks.
Hopefully that makes sense. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is I thought the delay we would see if there was any increase would be at Chestnut Street, which would be this top section. But we're actually seeing that the travel times are down pretty substantially there during the PM peak. I mean, 12 seconds is a decent reduction in delay. And then just kind of moving to the side street data collection. So on Washington Road, we compared the hose counts that we collected, and the speeds actually went down from pre to post implementation. And again, that's during COVID, so it's hard to know exactly how to interpret that data. And the volumes went down. So speeds reduced by 24%, volumes came down by 45%, bicycles up a bit, not tons. And then on Madison Avenue, we did not see an increase of cut through or speeds. It was also down 21% in speed and 37% with traffic volumes. I think the ADT of bicycles is relatively insignificant at these levels. So hopefully those bikes are headed over to Charlotte Street now. And then we also wanted to point out that future evaluations are still in place. So the transit data, we need to get some additional transit data to really determine whether bus usership has gone up. So that's something we'll be adding in the future rounds of data collection. And crash history. So the way crash data is reported, it takes a good year before the previous year's data is entered in the system and we can pull it. And last year was half before the road diet and half after the road diet. So we don't have a full year of crash data to pull yet. So we will be eventually comparing pre and post crash data, but we don't have enough data yet. And I also wanted to point out that, like I said a minute ago, we did have all the traffic video for every intersection. So if at some point the city wants to go back and look at pedestrian behavior, are they walking more freely in the sidewalk where before they used to have to hug, as far away from traffic as they could get? You could see pedestrian behavior. You could look at yielding rates of vehicles for pedestrians. We can look at total pedestrian volumes with that data. So we have the video, it's there. If the city wants to take a deeper dive at some point, or, they have an intern or something that has time to process that. So just kind of an overall summary, speeds are generally down. ADTs overall down due to COVID, almost rebounded in the PM to pre-COVID levels. Bikes are higher on the south end, depending on the segment. Bike usage has gone up. Cut-throughs on the side streets are down. AM peak hour volumes are down overall. PM peak hour volumes are down, but almost rebounded. The travel time data, I would say in general, it shows less time to go through the corridor. So the impact people are afraid about, in increasing travel times is not shown through this data, but it's also during COVID. So I think that it's probably a little too early for us to make some kind of solid deductions from the data we collected. And then we'll do some future study on crash data in transit. But I think just briefly want to touch base on the feedback the city has gotten. So I think the feedback really speaks to the benefit of the road diet. And I think I have enough time here. I'm actually going to read these because they're really impactful, and it really speaks to the impact of traffic calming isn't always quantified by speeds and volumes. It's really the experience and whether things feel safer. So I'm going to start at the top left here. One of the quotes we got, the left turning lane is so much safer than before. She now enjoys driving on Charlotte Street due to the new traffic flow. Next over, we can officially feel safe walking around our own neighborhood. Everyone is safer, whether you're in a car, on a bike, on foot, or in a wheelchair. Bottom left says, I find now that the traffic runs much smoother and feels and seems much safer to me. I'm sure that the data will prove that it is safer. Another one was, first time since moving here, I feel safe walking on Charlotte Street. And then this last quote was from Matt, who walked the corridor with us and helped us determine where to and how to do improvements for mobility for folks in wheelchairs. And he said, I just wanted to offer a heartfelt thank you to each of you and all who were involved in making that stretch of Charlotte Street safer and more accessible. I know you weren't able to do all that you planned to do, but it's still a vast improvement. It's especially freeing to have access to sidewalks and to be able to explore areas outside during a time like this. And we even have a news quote on the right saying Charlotte Street Road Diet, the businesses say it seems to be helping. So the majority of the feedback we've gotten and the city has gotten, we've just been collecting this over time, really reflects this. And I just want to point out one other thing that we just did a survey for the Greenway ADA and pedestrian plans. And we asked on that survey, what's your favorite street to walk on in Asheville? And many people said Charlotte Street. So I think it has made a difference for folks. And I think we all have our own experience. I think right after the bike lanes went in, Colin from our office said he was down there and saw kids someone rollerblading in the bike lanes. And I've seen kids riding in the bike lanes. So I think the perception of safety is really a major change. So with that, I just want to open it up and see if there's any additional questions. Unfortunately, the data with COVID, is a little muddied. So, but it is what it is. So happy to answer any questions.
Michael?
Yeah, this is, I guess, a pretty detailed question. But first of all, I'd just like to say thank you for the work that you've done on this. I'm an avid runner, and I've run through that corridor before and after, and it's markedly different. And it's a vast improvement, and I feel very, very safe through there. And I'm hoping that this is just a really nice test case for the rest of the city, so we can do this across the rest of the city, especially in my neighborhood. I'd love that. But the question that I actually had was regarding the flat medians. You'd mentioned that there was some pushback on that, so you guys made a compromise. Did that pushback come from our emergency services, or is that people in the neighborhood that were speculating that on behalf of emergency services that was going to be an issue?
I think it's a bit of both, and I'm trying to remember. Christy, you may remember better than I did, but there was an interview done with Asheville Emergency Services at one point on the news too, and it may have just been I think it was a little bit of both, to answer your question honestly.
And the reason I'm asking, because I'm looking for details on this. My neighborhood in particular, the Oakley neighborhood, has Fairview Road, which is right in the middle of the neighborhood. It is the main interchange for the whole area. And one of the pieces of feedback that we've got as to why we can't do traffic calming measures on Fairview is because of emergency services. So I'm just curious to know if there's an actual process that has to be followed, or if there's some sort of, I don't know, something written down somewhere that says, well, if this, then no, or if this, then that. And if that's something that we'd be able to take a look at, if anybody knows of that.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, we can talk more about that offline if you actually have questions. I think in general, traffic calming, anytime it's on kind of a dense urban street, if you start talking about speed humps, like that's where emergency vehicles tend to have a delay. And so there's a lot of pushback usually on that. So there are ways through it. There's things called speed wedges that allow for an axle spacing of an emergency vehicle to pass without going over it, but other vehicles can't. So there are creative solutions. So we could chat offline if you would like at another time. I'm happy to.
I'd very much like to do that. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'd like to add something to that to help answer your question, Michael. So different types of traffic calming impact emergency services differently. In fact, we've recently talked with the fire chief, Scott Burnett, and he is so happy about Charlotte Street and said that it has been way, way easier for them to navigate, mostly because of the two-way center left turn lane. When it comes to things that are raised in the pavement, it does present more of a concern for them. If it's speed humps or speed tables if they're on primary emergency routes, they actually have calculations that they do to determine what the impact to the response is and whether it impacts the thresholds that they have to maintain for emergency response. But I will say that we have recently installed speed cushions, which have, like Christy said, brakes within the speed hump to allow the wheelbase of the emergency vehicles to pass through it and not have to slow down. And so we just recently have installed some of those. I cannot remember where. I think Hazel Mill. And so far, we've heard good feedback from the fire department on that. And so that's something that we are looking to use as a traffic calming device in the future that would have less of an impact on emergency services. But all of that is to say is that overall, the fire department is very happy with the road diet, and that has no impact. In fact, it helps them get to where they need to go more quickly.
It sounds like we need to add that to our feedback slides. So we'll be in touch, Jessica. That's important. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Christy, did you want to make a point on the slide you pulled up?
No, I was just showing one of the community engagement points that we shared early on was about, because there was a lot of concern about emergency response time, and there has been research both by FHWA and other states who have done before and after studies on their emergency response time. And what we're seeing to be true for Charlotte Street is what the studies have proven also. And I was just showing earlier that it was one of those pieces of community engagement feedback even before we really got started, kind of showing this one that some folks wrote letters to the editor, WLS, got a hold of it and kind of got folks riled up saying this is going to be dangerous. There's an older gentleman who talked about how he had heart problems and he was worried he was going to die because it was going to take emergency responders longer to get to him. So yeah, what Christy said about Jessica's comment, we'll definitely be adding that to the presentation.
Excellent.
Michael, I'd like to also just point out, I've worked, I'm a civil engineer as well, and I've worked with other cities in the state that have used multiple median islands for specific instances with fire trucks, but it's working with that specific fire department and what they're open to, really. So.
Absolutely. And some of that was our budget issues, and people were really concerned about, there was so much angst over so many years on this project that it was, if that's the concession, the medians can be added later if they need to be. And at least we've gotten it in and people feel like, okay, it's not permanent. It can be restriped. So it kind of helped as an area to get to yes. The medians would be better for pedestrians for sure.
That's totally understandable, and nothing against what you guys were able to accomplish. Nobody can ever get 100% of what they're going for. But I'm just thinking in terms of other projects as we move down the road and other places in the city. Where can we, get the things that we weren't able to get this last time?
Anybody else?
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
I just have a quick comment. This is Joe Archibald. I really hope that you guys in the city maybe push this hard as far as the results already. I would love to see WLOS come back and interview the fire department and say, yeah, sorry, this has actually made it easier for us. I mean, I don't want to poke the bear, but all the people that were so absolutely against this project, and it's wonderful. Like, we really need to use this as an example going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I just feel like one of the things that we've done is we've avoided disaster. There was so many doomsayers when this project was coming around, and that clearly is not the case. I still think it's important that we do have those subsequent counts so we can prove our system. And then also, another item that I really, when I go through that corridor, I think the coloration of the different spots and the striping and everything, I think is really important because it does make me feel so much safer when I see that green. There's something about it just visually appealing as you move through it. So I think if there's a way to incorporate more of that in future projects, I think that's a great idea. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie's.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Our pleasure. Take care. Okay, our next item is unfinished business, a recommendation from the French Broad River East Greenway name change to the Wilma Dykeman Greenway. Lucy.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me? I got to plug in my power before I lose battery. Okay. I just posted the survey that Riverlink is running for about another week, which is our public engagement to see if we are correct in our assumption that people would like to see this Greenway's name changed to the Wilma Dykeman Greenway. This is something that really has been in the works for about 30 years, ever since the Wilma Dykeman Riverway plan was in place, long before any of us were working at the city of Asheville. And in addition to wanting to honor Wilma Dykeman, who is a native of the Asheville area, she is a very accomplished writer and environmentalist who wrote the book titled The French Broad River, and she brought a lot of attention to our area, as well as anyone else who read the book, on the importance of keeping the French Broad River clean, and also talked a lot about the heritage, including the Cherokee heritage of the French Broad River. So we feel like it is very apropos for that name change to occur. In addition to that, we have safety reasons for wanting to name it a different name than the really catchy French Broad River East Bank Greenway. And that is because the opposite side of the river is already called the French Broad River Greenway. And so if anyone were to get hurt on either side of the river, it would be hard for first responders to reach them as quickly as possible. And also for maintenance issues, it's better to know a very distinctive name on each side of the river. So I'm going to share just so that you all totally understand the area that we're talking about. This is the French Broad River within the city limits. It starts down here on the corner of Lyman Street and Amboy Bridge. And this yellow line is the brand new greenway within the Rad Tip Greenway, the Rad Tip project. And then farther north, this red line is a 1 mile section that we will be designing this year. And it reaches the city limits up on the top, which is the corner of Riverside Drive and Broadway. So this 3.5 mile section is the Wilma Dykeman Greenway that we're proposing. And in addition to in the city limits, the town of Woodfin will be building a greenway that will continue along the French Broad River for another, I think it's 3.5 miles to the intersection of the Elk Mountain Road, which is across the street from the MSD headquarters and Woodfin office campus down there. I think Joe might know that area really well. And they're planning to build that section sometime starting next year. And they are also considering using the name change of Wilma Dykeman once it is built. So they had some interest in doing the public engagement now, but right now they're very busy with their fundraising for not only the Greenway and the new park, but their Waterway Park. And so they didn't want to complicate things by throwing a name change in the middle of the mix. We're trying to move ahead with this now because we will be doing about a month-long celebration to celebrate the Rad Tip projects, including the Greenway. And it will fall within Earth Day, which is, I think, April 21st, and end May 21st, which is right around Wilma Dykeman's birthday. I think her birthday is May 20th, and she'll be 101 years old. She would be if she were still living. So this complies with the city of Asheville's name change policy. We don't like to name things for people who are still alive. We also like to name things after people that have contributed cultural significance to the area. And we do feel like Wilma Dykeman has done that. So first of all, I would like, if you haven't taken the survey, please do so. It's very, very short. It's really a yes or no question. And if you respond no, then it asks you if you have any other ideas on what you would like it to be named. And also today, in the hopes that we will be moving forward, because we would like to take this to council on March 24th for their approval, I would like for you to take a vote whether, unless we hear something otherwise through the survey, that you would also like to see the name change to the Wilma Dykeman Greenway.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Right on. So you're looking for, Lucy, you're looking for a motion for us to make that recommendation to adopt the resolution?
Yes, please.
I have a
Perfect.
question. Sorry.
Sure.
I love Wilma Dykeman. I like the history that you shared. I read her book in college, and so I like instinctively am like, yes, of course. And I don't live in that neighborhood. I'm not from that neighborhood. I'm on a committee with a lot of faces that I don't know if we live in that neighborhood. So I'm just kind of curious of what other input you're getting, who's like advocating for this, just to make sure. I don't know, like just, I think it's a great idea, but is there something I'm not thinking of? Are there people who are going to be upset? I think naming is a very important thing that we're all doing, and there's a lot of renaming happening right now. I don't know of any skeletons in Wilma Dykeman's closet, but just kind of curious, since that place isn't my neighborhood, I'm curious what the neighborhood folks think.
So this is the only public engagement we're doing through RiverLink. And yeah, that's the only public engagement that we're doing. I do feel like most people are going to think that naming it after Wilma Dykeman is very appropriate.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to name the Greenway after Wilma Dykeman instead of the river arch, to the French Broad River East River. Yeah.
I change it.
I'll make the motion.
Catchy.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Randy, a second by Pat. Let me get my list here. Okay, any other discussion, comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve as recommended. Maggie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lydia?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. It is unanimous. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you, Liz.
take care. The next item is our update on the citywide default speed limit to 25 miles per hour. Jessica?
Yes, I have just a minor update. We met with NCDOT last week. We have a monthly meeting with them regarding pretty much everything, but the focus is on pedestrian and bicycle safety. We talked with them about this. They don't think that there's any legal barrier to pursuing this. We agreed that we would continue to talk with them about it. They shared with us a GIS database of their state routes and the speed limits that are within or that are on those state routes. And I would be happy to share that with anyone who's interested. And I'm working to figure out if we have a similar GIS database that shows what our speed limits are and where. One of the things that we're still trying to gauge is how, if we were to implement this, how many roads would it actually be impacting? And again, this would not be for state routes. So it would largely, I think, be residential streets, many of which we have over the years changed to 25 miles per hour and posted. And so this would add additional streets into that mix, of course. And so we are trying to get a sense of what that looks like. And so that's our next step right now.
Okay.
And that's all I've got for that.
All right. Thank you. I think to Michael's point from the last meeting, it seems like we have to go through three different steps here. We have the city, county, and then the state. But I do think it's important that we have kind of coalescing between the city and the county. So then we can have a very clear delineation of what needs to be done about the state routes and if there is any opportunity to do so. So I think we're working towards that solution. Any other comments? Okay, the next section, that's going to the committee updates. We'll start with transit. And John, you want to give us a quick update on the last meeting, the January meeting?
Sure. So I was not able to attend the January meeting, but I spoke with Eunice, and she told me to bring up a couple of items. She mentioned that the transit station improvement project, that the bids are out for the digital signage and have been advertised, and they hope to receive responses by mid-March. And the Swiftly Onboard apps implementation project, they're working with Swiftly to provide training later this month to the contractor drivers on how to use the apps and to monitor the OTP performance on the routes. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. Jessica, do you have anything to add on the documents that you attached, the updates?
Well, I just want to clarify something. I'm not sure if maybe Eunice was a little confused, but the digital signage project is already well underway. We've already selected and contracted with a company. Perhaps what she meant was that we will be installing the signage, hopefully within the next couple months. I bet I know what she was talking about. So we had to bid out the electrical portion separately so that the necessary electric and electric hookups and things of that nature were available for the signage. So that was bid out recently. And as soon as we get that completed, then we'll actually put the signage in. So just to clarify.
Okay, great, thank you. And I also noticed that you added the ridership numbers. Thanks for that. Going through that, it's nice to see that we're nearing pre-COVID numbers again. So hopefully we'll get back up, start ramping up with our ridership once again and heading in the right direction. Anything else on transit?
The only other thing I would mention is that, so we've been contracting with Young Transportation. I think at the last Multimodal Commission meeting, I had mentioned that we were nearly out or already out of our CARES Act funding. And so we were in a spot that was kind of precarious in terms of how do we keep our Young contract going. And what's happened between then and now is good news. We have within our overall budget of transit enough money to continue to fund Young Transportation's contract at least through the end of this fiscal year. So there was a significant savings, or there has been a significant savings in our paratransit budget that is going to essentially offset that cost, since we haven't received any additional stimulus funding at this point. But we're still, keeping an eye on that as well. But we will go to council on March 9th to extend Young's contract at least through the end of the year, and to have the same level of service, additional service from them. So that's very good.
Yes, that is great news, particularly to get us through the end of the year, because I feel like we might be seeing some clearing in our lives by then. So that's excellent update. Okay.
That's the end of the fiscal year, right? You're saying end of the fiscal year or end of the calendar year? Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Jessica, I saw the ridership data. It did look like the amount of people that Young is transporting is dropping off, though. So, I don't know if that has any impact on the contract amount, does it?
No, it does not. And I'll have to take a look at that to see if there's any pattern that I can ascertain from that.
Michael?
Yeah. So It looks like we had been gifted by the city some annual transit passes, and I noticed that they're non-transferable. My question is or I guess just want to know why they're not transferable. I'd really like to be able to give mine away. There is a healthcare worker that lives on my street, and she's often standing out in the cold every day waiting for this bus to arrive. She's obviously relying on the bus. I'm not. I'd like to be able to give that away. So I just want to go on the record as saying that that's something that I would like to do if possible.
I'd also like to say I'd like to do the same thing as Michael. So second his comment.
All right, excellent. Jessica, you have feedback on those?
I don't know. I don't know why that wouldn't be possible. Let me think about that. I mean, I think that's a very nice thing to do. I can't see any reason why that wouldn't be okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to greenways. Lydia?
We met just the beginning of the month and we toured the Bowcatcher Greenway. We walked the entirety of the future path, which was really insightful just to see where it's going to go. And it looks like it's going to be really beneficial and eventually connect up to like possibly a future park that's overlooking the city. And so that's kind of the main thing that we did. And we also discussed that we'll probably be alternating every other month with a meeting and a field trip. So this next meeting will actually be a meeting. And that's kind of the update I have since our last meeting.
Great, thank you. Yes, it was a lot of fun tramping through. We had a sinkhole, we had some downed trees, but it's remarkable how much there is available to us with these greenways. You know, I think Lucy the work that they do is just amazing to find these paths through. This road is just covered up and overgrown, and it's a beautiful path. It's going to be a great greenway once it's all put into place. Okay, next, Bike and Ped Task Force. Randy, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, so we update from Dan Beecher on the corridor studies, and so it's just FYI, but it's good to hear what's happening with those. And then we talked about a couple People for Bikes things, which is the national bike industry group that does bike advocacy. One is they have a rating system that they've implemented for cities. So right now we're a bronze level city on League of American Bicycle Friendly City, which is the lowest you can achieve, but you have to do something to achieve that. And we have a dismal rating on the People for Bikes Bike Friendly City ratings. And so we're looking at how we can maybe attack some of the things that they rate to move us up on that scale. And then it's been great. Last couple meetings, NCDOT has been represented, and they've been giving us information about the Ambroy and Meadow, Ambroy Bridge and the Meadow Road situation, where the got a lot more attention now since the Greenway, since the Wilma Dykeman. The Greenway has been established now. There's a lot more attention put on there, and it's just good to see that NCDOT is actually responding to public attention to that and trying to figure out ways they can improve those. And so we talked a little bit about that last month, but we also more this month too. And then as far as People for Bikes too, they are funding partially an effort to extend the College Avenue bike lanes all the way up to Cox Street, and Asheville on Bikes is also contributing money to that project as well too. So hopefully we'll connect more of our network, which is one of the things that People for Bikes rate cities on, is connectivity, and we go really low in that now. So this would be an effort to help be better on our connectivity.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I would imagine that, I've been out on that path quite a bit, and I imagine today it's going to be just slammed with people. So it's great. And I think that pressure is going to keep that process moving in the right direction. Joe, did a planning and zoning meeting happen?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
I would say the biggest thing that we've been dealing with, excuse me, is what council just passed last night, which is the new hotel ordinance, just barely in time before the moratorium ran out. And if anybody has not looked at it, I would very, very much encourage you to take a look at it. There's been a lot of work has gone into it. It's a much smoother and much better process, hopefully going forward. It doesn't mean no hotels. We can't do that, but there's a lot of good in it. So I would just encourage everybody to take a look at it.
Excellent. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, I didn't really like that quote. So
there was a note that Joe was apparently quoted in the paper. Okay. And then I-26, the aesthetic committee. Jessica, is that you? Yeah, sorry.
Well, it's Ken, and I haven't gotten anything from him recently on that, so I apologize. I don't really know if there's any new or exciting information. So I need to touch base with Ken and make sure that we get monthly updates if there are any.
Okay, great.
And then the next one is the link to our spreadsheet that we keep up to date, or try to keep up to date with the status of all the many projects. One thing I just wanted to say, and perhaps I said it last time, but I can't remember, but we've got a lot of our projects that have been on hold because of DOT funding issues. A lot of them have been let go, if you will, so they're moving forward again. So that includes, for example, the French Broad River West Greenway. We've been given authorization to proceed on a lot of the projects that have been held up: Overlook Road, sidewalks, the Greenway. I can't remember anything else at this point, but they are slowly, surely giving us authorization to move forward with more and more of our projects that have been on hold. So that's really good news.
Yes, that's great news to see things slowly coming back to life and getting active again.
Yeah.
Okay, please note our future agenda items. And of course, Michael, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, and this kind of probably goes into the future agenda items, but I was wondering if we were going to be able to have just something put on future agenda regarding just our budget, our city budget. I don't know about you guys, but my taxes just went up substantially. So I would imagine that we're going to have some more money to play with. So if that's the case, I'd like to know how we're going to look at that.
Your valuation went up, but it's still yet to be determined if the tax rate will be increased. Just to clarify.
Yes.
Well, right. The rate's the same, but everybody's property values have gone up substantially. So.
But it's likely, or I believe that there's going to be a consideration for whether or not the tax rate should be lowered to offset that increase. So a lot of times when property values go up, the city and the county will take a look at whether or not they want to roll back the tax rate to offset some of that increase. So it's still up in the air right now as to whether tax rates would go down, and therefore your individual property tax may or may not go up.
I think my point is, it does make sense, but I think there's something to be said about if they do decide to bring our rates down to adjust for our property values all going up. What is it that we would be losing out on? What projects don't happen, or what projects could happen if left alone? So everybody always wants lower taxes, but we never talk about what it is that we could have if we kept our rate the same. Like, would we have more sidewalks, for example, if we didn't make an adjustment, we just carried forward as is?
This is Maggie. I'll definitely second Michael on the sense of I would love to know more about the budget process timeline and what we can see and where, just so I know, Jessica, you and I have talked as a staff person, like we can help advocate for things that you see a need for, but also just to really be informed, as I think it's important for us to understand that. So I would love to know more about the timeline and if there's opportunity for us to see stuff before things connected to multimodal go further through the chain of other committees or to council committees or what have you.
Okay, I can talk to the budget team to see if they might be able to do some kind of presentation, and if not, then I can at least share schedule and information. The one thing I can tell you is that we are assuming right now that we won't be adding any new major projects or personnel or anything. Like, we're still on a hiring freeze. And so we've basically been told that not to ask for anything new, because we've submitted, things every year. We submit our capital projects, prioritize projects, etc. And so we're not adding to that already submitted list of new asks. But you're not wrong, Michael, that, when it comes to whether the city council decides to increase the tax rate or leave the tax rate the same or what have you, then if there is any new revenue, then it's up to them to decide how to allocate that, right? So,
and just to be clear, I'm a real estate agent, just for all disclosure. I was looking at my values as well as everybody else's in the neighborhood. I pulled like the first 4 or 5 that were around me, and everybody's home values had went up about 18%, or at least what the projected tax would be. So it's a sizable chunk of money, and I just like to envision, okay, if we left it as is, what could we fund that's not being considered down?
Right.
I'm not advocating for new taxes, but maybe it's not a good time to lower taxes.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. It sounds like Jessica has that info, and we can at least have an idea of what the plan is from the city's standpoint. Anna, did you have a question?
Just a quick comment. We actually did have a neighborhood advisory committee meeting on Monday. It's only the second one that we've had since pre-COVID. And I think we're still sort of getting back into the swing of things, adding new members. But Monday's meeting was mostly just a lot of general housekeeping tasks and getting caught up. But one of the big takeaways is NAC is one of the committees that was tapped to provide liaisons to the Open Space Amendment Task Force. So those talks are starting again regarding how to amend the city's open space standards, and I am on that, as well as Sharon Summerall. So we had our first task force meeting today, and I guess stay tuned. I'll be able to fill you all in at subsequent meetings, but I do think that multimodal will play some sort of role. To what degree, still to be determined, but that's all I've got.
Okay, great. Thank you. On future agenda items, hang on, Joe, one second. Randy, did you have an item you wanted to add to this list? Thought I saw an item.
No, I was just asking. I didn't see. So Jessica said that some of the NCDOT funding was being released, and I know that the Overlook Hendersonville Road intersection project was being held up because of the funding. And I just don't see it on the update items. So I may have missing where it is on that list, because we had suggested improvements for that intersection, and NCDOT was very amenable to those improvements. And I want to make sure that it doesn't start up again without missing the opportunity to continue to press them on those.
Okay. Jessica, can we get that added, or just understand how that'll fit into what might start moving again?
Yes, I will ask Barb, if Barb's listening, if she can look into that for us.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Joe?
I just had something I was wanting to add to the future agenda items. If there is any new updated information on the bike share program. I know it's listed on the, list of projects, and it was one that 2019 was a big hot button, item, and now it's kind of getting, or has been, shoved to the side. So I was just curious if there were, future agenda to kind of look back at that again.
Okay, great. We can get that added. I think that's so. I've been a part of a few conversations over the last month about the eviction of the resident by North Carolina DOT under the 240 bridge at Broadway Street, and this probably falls outside the purview of our group. But I just did want to say that, I've been in contact with Kim, and she's reached out to local and state officials with a series of very pointed questions. And I think that her questions and those answers are going to lead to a greater level of clarity, understanding, and probably some procedures going forward. So, I know Kim had to hop off, but she's on top of that and doing a really good job kind of following up with that issue. Okay, any late arriving public comment? All right, please note our next meeting tentatively scheduled for March 24th. And without any other comments or questions, we'll move to adjourn.
I had one, sorry.
Yes.
Slow to the go. So I live off of Charlotte Street. I loved having the update today, so make sure we send that back to the folks who presented. And I also live off of Merriman, so I'm like on Hillside right between the two. And every time I go down Charlotte and then I make my way, and I never make my way on a bicycle on Merriman, I'm like, what a great corridor that we could apply things that we've learned on Charlotte Street on Merriman. And so, again, new to the committee and recently back to town, I would love to hear if there's any schemings or ideas or work or whatever that has been starting to think about the Merriman corridor, because I think that the momentum we have today, or the momentum I see from the report we heard today, is like we have a lot of doubts that were assuaged by our data. And so that feels like a really good opportunity to move that around to another space, specifically Merriman.
Yeah, there was maybe 6 months ago, there was a project that came through, and there were a lot of very strong opinions about that, and I think the city provided their opinion, and so I think that might be back on the drawing board. Jessica, do you have any more, like a quick 30-second on that, where we're at on that?
For Merriman, yeah. Yes. So I'm hoping to potentially have a conversation about Merriman next month. So, we are having conversations with NCDOT about Merriman because they have a upcoming resurfacing project. And we as a city, I think, have a lot of goals and objectives that we would like to see implemented on that corridor and use that resurfacing as an opportunity to accomplish that. DOT has been working a lot more closely with us on all kinds of projects, and Merriman is not, what's the word? They continue to work with us on it, but they do have some concerns, and I think they feel that it's a different corridor, and it is in some ways, than Charlotte Street. But we're going to continue to have conversations about whether or not we can find some way to seize upon that opportunity to improve the corridor from a safety perspective. So I'm hoping to have more information for you guys next month.
Awesome. That's really great. It seems like that resurfacing is an opportunity, and love to hear more about what those concerns are, so that, we as advocates in the community can look for information to help dissuade those concerns, or to genuinely hear and understand and empathize, really.
Yeah, I understand.
Cool.
Joe?
I'll just make a quick comment. I have kind of pushed the planning department to get on a list of projects to do a corridor study of Merriman Avenue. That wouldn't necessarily be directly from traffic standpoint, but a bigger, like the studies on Tunnel Road, like the study for Hendersonville. So kind of looking at the entire thing from the built environment standpoint. So hopefully that will get on the list.
Perfect.
For the planning department soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. And without objection, we are adjourned. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.